No hello, no explanation. Just my father's ice-cold voice cutting through my evening like a blade. Don't bother coming to the family reunion. We're cutting TIs. Click, 18 words. That's all it took to end 28 years of my life. I sat there staring at my phone, waiting for the rage to hit, waiting for tears, waiting for something. But all I felt was this strange, hollow calm, like the part of me that had been holding its breath for years had finally been given permission to exhale. My name is Harper Lane, and I just got fired from my own family, the golden child and the ghost. Let me paint you a picture of the Lane family dynasty. My father Warren didn't just build Lane Auto, he crafted it like a monument to his own ego. Started as a grease monkey, clawed his way up to franchise owner, then regional chain operator. The man turned changing oil into an empire, but every king needs an heir, right? Enter my older brother, Rhett, 3 years older, infinitely more charming, and blessed with the kind of reckless confidence that makes people forget he's never actually accomplished anything. Rhett was Dad's mirror image, loud, demanding, and absolutely convinced the world owed him everything. And then there was me, the backup plan, the safety net, the one who kept the lights on while everyone else took credit for the electricity. I was 12 when Dad first handed me a clipboard and said, "Harper, real success comes from knowing every detail." By 16, I was running payroll during spring break while my friends were at the beach. By 24, I had an MBA from Harvard and a job offer in Chicago that would have doubled my salary, but Dad needed me for the family expansion. Rhett was handling vision work, which apparently meant expensive lunches and golf trips. I handled everything else: logistics, negotiations, crisis management, and all the boring stuff that actually keeps a business alive. My mother, Lynette, she perfected the art of selective blindness, hosting dinner parties, folding invoices, and whispering reminders like, "Your father's building something for all of us, sweetheart. Be grateful." So I was, or I tried to be, the trap I signed my name taught. Well, years ago, Lane Auto needed $2.5 million for a new headquarters. Big expansion, bigger dreams. The bank loved our numbers but wanted 2 signatures on the loan. Rhett couldn't sign. His credit was trashed from some investment opportunities that went south. Dad wouldn't risk his personal assets. So guess who got handed the pen? "It's just a formality," Dad said, sliding the papers across the conference table. "The bank needs a backup name. Someone reliable." Reliable. That word should have been my first red flag. I hesitated for maybe half a second. But somewhere deep down, I still believed that loyalty would eventually buy me a seat at the real table. Not the kiddie table where they kept me for meetings, but the grown-up table where actual decisions got made. So I signed. Harper Lane, co-applicant, on a $2.5 million loan. What I thought I was signing, an investment in our shared future. What I actually signed, my own death warrant. The slow nifty didn't push me out all at once. That would have been obvious, messy, potentially illegal. Instead, they used the slow knife, the kind that cuts so gradually you don't realize you're bleeding until you're already on the ground. It started with access. First, I couldn't log into certain vendor platforms. System updates, they said. Then my financial dashboard went read-only. Restructuring security protocols. My company credit card expired. Never got replaced. Meanwhile, Rhett was getting a standing desk that cost more than my rent, company paid trips to Las Vegas labeled leadership summits, and an office chair that probably cost more than my first car. The breaking point came during a quarterly budget meeting. Just the 3 of us, me, Rhett, and Dad. I'd caught a duplicate invoice, $12,000 charged 3 times by the same vendor. "That's from a friend of mine," Rhett said, waving it off like it was nothing. "Let it slide. He gives us good rates elsewhere." I looked at Dad, expecting him to at least raise an eyebrow. Instead, he sipped his coffee and delivered the line. "That changed everything. Focus on bigger things, Harper. Stop acting like an outsider." Outsider? I'd overseen 4 site expansions, renegotiated our fleet lease and saved us hundreds of thousands, kept payroll balance through to supply chain disasters. But the moment I questioned anything that didn't involve spreadsheets and silent compliance, I became foreign. That night, I started keeping copies of everything: internal spending reports, meeting notes, emails where Rhett signed my name to client communications. I called it my shadow ledger, though I didn't know yet what I was building. I just knew I needed to hold on to the truth while I still could. The discovery that changed everything. Final piece fell into place on a Thursday morning. In early spring, I was reviewing my monthly credit summary, just routine stuff, when I saw something that made my blood freeze. Lane Holdings deferred payment review. Lane Holdings was supposed to be dormant, a shell corporation Dad created years ago for real estate deals that never happened. But there it was, active and apparently in trouble. I dug deeper. What I found wasn't just disappointing, it was devastating. The expansion loan I'd co-signed 2 years ago, the one that was supposed to launch our bright future, it was drowning. 3 payments behind, floating on grace periods and bank goodwill, and the only reason the bank hadn't pulled the plug? My name, my clean credit, my perfect payment history. On everything else, they were using me as a human shield while they bled the company dry. I pulled financial records going back 2 years and traced every dollar. Over $40,000 in consulting fees paid to Rhett's friends. Marketing tests with no actual campaigns. Fleet repairs triple billed. Vendor quotes with my forged signature. This wasn't mismanagement. This was systematic looting, and I was the co-pilot on a plane they'd been deliberately crashing, building the perfect revenge. I called my law school friend Danielle that same day. We met at a coffee shop near the courthouse, and I spread everything out on the table between us. She studied the documents with the kind of focus that made me remember why she'd graduated top of our class. When she finished, she looked up with something I hadn't seen in months. Respect, you're not listed as a guarantor, she said. Just a co-applicant, meaning they needed your name to get the loan, but you're not legally married to it. If you withdraw before they restructure, she smiled. Well, let's just say the bank might have some questions about why they approved $2.5 million based on 2 signatures when one of them is walking away. That night, I opened my laptop and started building what I now call my redemption plan. Every document, every email, every forged signature, every impossible expense, and at the center of it all, a letter Danielle helped me write, a formal withdrawal from the loan that would take exactly 4 minutes to execute, 4 minutes to destroy everything they'd built on my back. The 4 minutes. That changed everything. Logged into the loan portal on a Tuesday morning at exactly 9:17 a.m. The administrative credentials I'd set up 2 years ago still worked back when I thought I was building something real instead of enabling my own exploitation. Co-applicant status, active modification options, available. I clicked remove, uploaded the withdrawal letter, entered my PIN, submitted, update received, processing pending, compliance review. No alarms, no dramatic music, just a quiet gray message at the bottom of the screen. It was done. Next, I emailed Keith Heron, the bank's loan manager, professional, courteous, and absolutely devastating. I attached a summary of financial discrepancies, vendor fraud, forged signatures, and documentation showing how I'd been systematically excluded from business decisions while remaining legally tied to their failures. Within an hour, the bank froze Lane Holdings' operating account and triggered an internal review. While they scrambled to figure out what hit them, I moved everything I cared about into an untouchable trust, confirmed my zero liability with my personal accountant, and did something I hadn't done in years. I turned off my phone and actually meant it. The panic call. Woke up the next morning to 32 missed calls. By afternoon, 78 total. Mom, Dad, Rhett, and one from a number I didn't recognize until I played the voicemail. Gordon Maddox, their company accountant, and his voice was pure panic. Harper, call me now. This is serious. The loan's collapsing, the bank pulled support, we're at risk of default. You need to fix this. Do you hear me? You have to fix this. I listened to it twice, not because I didn't understand, but because it sounded like justice. And justice, when it finally arrives, doesn't scream. It echoes. Rhett's first text. What the hell did you do? His second. You're overreacting. We could have handled this internally, but there was no we anymore. There hadn't been a we in a long time. Mom left a voicemail that night, voice trembling. Sweetheart, what's happening? Your father says the bank froze everything, that they might recall the loan. Did you sign something? I called her back. It rang twice. I removed my name. That's all. Her breath caught. But you can't just do that. Actually, I can, I said calmly. And I did. Harper, this affects all of us. No, I replied. You made sure it didn't. Then I hung up, not in anger. In completion, the last Saperthi chose Leona's for our final family meeting, the same restaurant where we used to celebrate birthdays, with the private room near the fireplace where we'd once blown out candles and clinked glasses of ginger ale. But there were no balloons this time, no cake, just my parents sitting stiff at one end of the table, Rhett staring at his phone like this was beneath him, and an empty chair waiting for me as if they still believed I could be summoned. I arrived, 15 minutes late on purpose, gray slacks, button-down blouse, neutral, unreadable. Danielle had once told me that power doesn't shout, it arrives without apology. Thanks for coming, Rhett said as I sat down. I didn't come for you, I replied. Let's not waste each other's time. Dad leaned forward, his eyes trying to pin me down like they used to when I was 12. You made your point loud and clear. No, I said, voice steady. The bank made my point. I just stopped protecting your lie. His jaw tightened. Mom shifted. Uncomfortably. We're trying to hold this together, he said. You think you're punishing us, Harper, but you're punishing the legacy your grandfather built. I looked at him, really looked at him, and said, Grandpa built a garage. You turned it into a dictatorship, Rhett scoffed. Oh, come on. We gave you everything. You gave me a job, I said, meeting his gaze. Not a voice. The silence that followed was thick, almost warm, like a room that had finally stopped pretending to be something it wasn't. Then Mom spoke, almost in a whisper. What do you want, Harper? That was the question, wasn't it? Not revenge, I'd already taken that. What I wanted now was clarity. I reached into my bag and placed a sealed envelope on the table. This is a signed affidavit confirming I've permanently withdrawn from the company loan, the board, and all business operations. You will never use my name again. Dad opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. I'm not finished. I took a breath. I'm also submitting an anonymous tip to the state auditor. There are funds missing, vendors unpaid, payroll inconsistencies. I slid the envelope forward. It's your mess now. Fully, legally. Rhett's face turned red. You're destroying us over ego. I'm not destroying anything, I said, standing. I'm just removing the illusion that I was ever part of it. I turned toward the door. Behind me, for the first time in my life, my father said the one word I never expected to hear. Harper, please. I paused, not from hesitation, but from satisfaction. You left a voicemail telling me we were done, I said without turning around. I'm just agreeing with you. Formally, and then I left. The beautiful aftermath. The story made the local business papers 2 weeks later. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet piece about Lane Auto facing financial turmoil amid internal disputes. I didn't leak it, but I knew who did. Danielle called me when it ran, her voice half serious, half amused. When people lose power, they look for someone to blame. They just didn't expect that person to have already walked away. The voicemails turned vicious after that. Dad, you ungrateful child. We built that business for you. You're ruining your future. Rhett, you think you're clever, but you'll need us someday. Gordon the accountant. Do you even understand what this means? You've destroyed their legacy. But here's The thing nobody said out loud. They destroyed it long before I pulled out. They destroyed it when they used my name but denied me a seat at the table. When they decided I was a threat, not a daughter. When they made me invisible. Now the loan was collapsing, the accounts frozen, the vendor contracts unraveling, and me? I was untouchable. No legal blowback, no financial damage. My credit intact, my savings secure. I forwarded the last voicemail to Danielle, then deleted the rest. The beautiful Bajinigi moved into a small loft in downtown Portland. Nothing fancy, just sunlight, clean windows, and space enough for both a desk and peace. I started consulting quietly, helping small women-led startups avoid the kind of traps I'd lived through. Not because I needed purpose, but because I already had it. 3 months later, an envelope arrived at my new address. No return name, just the bank's logo and a tracking barcode. Inside was a single sheet of paper. This letter confirms that the commercial loan associated with Harper Lane has been formally withdrawn and restructured. No further obligation remains. No action required. No thank you. No apology. No spin. Just a line drawn in ink, in law, and finally in truth. I placed the letter in a folder marked complete and slid it into the back of my filing cabinet. That night, I lit a candle by the window. The loft was quiet. The city below hummed, unaware and alive. I thought of that voicemail one last time. Don't bother coming to the reunion. We're cutting TIs. They wanted silence, obedience, absence, and they got all three. What they didn't expect was that I would thrive inside that silence, that I would build something not out of revenge, but out of reality. I poured a glass of wine, opened a new client file, and wrote one line at the top. You're not difficult. You're just finally visible, and then I kept going.